Have you ever wondered about our origins? Who created us? Who was the first human? What was the first human couple that marked the beginning and proliferation of the human species? Of course, since Charles Darwin and his proven theory of the evolution of species, we now know our roots. But let's go back to a time when this knowledge was unknown, and religions tried to explain all our existential questions through imaginative stories and myths. Nearly all the world's religions have crafted the simplest and most understandable story about the creation of humans. We were made by a supernatural being as a male and female pair. The couple began having children, and their children had children, and so on. This multiplication has led us to our current population of nearly 7 billion people. The story is straightforward in its conception and easily understood, satisfying the curiosity of uneducated minds, as was the case for most people at that time. In the post-Christian Western world, the prevailing religious theory or myth is no exception. According to the story, we come from Adam and Eve, the so-called first humans created by God from clay. However, upon closer examination of the story of Adam and Eve, we can find some inconsistencies in the myth's coherence. Let's begin with Genesis to unravel the story's thread. As stated in Genesis, chapter 1, after God created the stars and our planet, he focused on the living creatures of the earth. He created them in pairs, male and female. The culmination of his magnificent creation was the human species, also created in a male and female pair.
And God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them.
It is clear that man and woman, male and female, were created simultaneously. The text goes on to detail God's blessings and instructions for how the couple should live. This occurred on the sixth day of creation when God completed his work and rested, marking the end of the first chapter of Genesis. The next chapter begins with a summary of creation, as recounted in the first chapter, and continues with a description of the Garden of Eden, where God placed man to live. Around the middle of the second chapter, the narrative shifts with the following event.
And the Lord God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper comparable to him." So the Lord God formed out of the ground all the animals of the field and all the birds of the sky, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all the livestock, birds of the sky, and wild animals. But for Adam, there was no helper found comparable to him.
In other words, while God initially created humans as male and female pairs, just like all creatures, it now appears that the male is alone. Where did his partner go? Is there an error in the text? And if so, what is the correct version of the story? We can't be sure whether this discrepancy was intentional or not, but as we continue our research, we discover that a significant part of the story of the first humans has been obscured. According to the Kabbalistic book Alphabet of Ben Sira, the first humans were constantly arguing. However, this story does not refer to Adam and Eve, but rather to Adam and Lilith. The cause of their arguments was that Adam couldn't accept Lilith as his equal, even though they were created simultaneously and in the same way. He insisted on being dominant during sex, implying his control over Lilith. Lilith couldn't accept this and eventually asked God to intervene. When he didn't, Lilith uttered his secret name, a grave act of blasphemy, and flew away from the garden. Adam soon missed Lilith and searched for her. Unable to bear seeing his beloved creation so distressed, God sent 3 angels to find Lilith and bring her back. These angels were Sonvi, Sanzani, and Samanjalaf. The angels searched for Lilith for a long time until they finally found her near the Red Sea. By then, Lilith had transformed into a demoness and had given birth to hundreds of demons. The angels told Lilith that God and Adam forgave her and wanted her to return, but she responded with curses. Lilith insisted she had done nothing wrong and did not need forgiveness. The angels demanded she come back or else they would kill all her children. Lilith's response was a firm refusal, accompanied by curses upon all of Adam's descendants. The angels followed through on their threat and killed her children. According to tradition, since then, Lilith has attacked pregnant women, newborns, and children at night, seeking revenge. This is why folklore recommends marking the names or seals of the 3 angels on beds and cradles to protect against Lilith's wrath. The story continues, stating that when the angels returned and informed God of what had happened, he decided to create another woman, Eve, to comfort Adam's loneliness. This time, God made Eve from one of Adam's ribs to avoid repeating the same story, ensuring Eve would not claim equal rights with Adam and would view him as superior. The alphabet of Ben Sira is the most complete account of Lilith's story, making it the most famous and commonly referenced version. However, there are some issues with this book. First, it is part of Jewish literature but is not considered a sacred text. Second, it was originally written as a satirical story. Third, and perhaps most importantly, it was written much later than the Book of Genesis. Genesis dates back to around 1400 BCE, while the alphabet of Ben Sira was written in the Middle Ages, sometime between 700 and 1000 CE. This gap of about 2000 years is too large to consider the alphabet of Ben Sira a reliable source for the story of Lilith. We should seek texts that are chronologically closer to Genesis. Further research reveals the earliest mention of Lilith in the Hebrew Bible, specifically in the book of Isaiah, dating back to around the 6th century BCE. In Isaiah 34 verse 14, we read, "And the wolves will meet there with the wildcats, the satyr will call out to his companion, Lilith will find rest there, finding a place of solace for herself." In the Septuagint, the word Lilith has been translated as cuckoo, referring to the bird. This translation is clearly incorrect, as the Hebrew word for cuckoo is kecha. Further research reveals that Lilith is a well-known demonic entity in Judaism. According to the Etymological Dictionary of the Rabbinic Language, Lilith is the name of a female night demon resembling a night owl. The renowned Rabbi Shmuel Yarkanai from the 3rd century CE adds that she takes the form of an owl with a woman's face. As our investigation continues, we find that while Lilith is notably absent from the Bible, she is frequently mentioned in other Hebrew texts, particularly those of the Kabbalah. Let's examine some of her most famous deeds. In paintings depicting Adam and Eve by the tree with the forbidden fruit, the serpent offering the fruit is sometimes depicted with a female head or even as a regular woman. This illustrates the Jewish belief that the serpent in the Garden of Eden was Lilith, who sought revenge by convincing Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. Other accounts tell how, after angels killed her children, Lilith engaged in relations with Adam hundreds of times while he slept. From these encounters, Lilith bore hundreds of demons and malevolent spirits. This is perhaps the earliest Jewish reference to the so-called incubus and succubus, demons that engage with unsuspecting victims in their sleep. Due to this reference, Rabbi Hanina wrote, "It is forbidden for a person to sleep alone at home because it invites Lilith to visit them in their sleep and conceive a demon from their seed." Later, Methuselah killed all these demonic children, further enraging Lilith. Another intriguing account identifies the famed Queen of Sheba with Lilith. The Hebrew Bible tells us that when the Queen of Sheba heard of King Solomon's wealth and wisdom, she decided to visit him. Solomon welcomed her with great honors and was enchanted by her beauty and wisdom. The king was so captivated that he hastened to offer her whatever she requested, as well as countless other gifts she had never asked for. The two spent significant time together, discussing spiritual matters. The Queen of Sheba posed numerous challenging riddles and questions to Solomon to test his wisdom. This is where the story becomes complex. The official biblical narrative states that the Queen of Sheba was persuaded by Solomon to embrace Judaism. However, mystical texts recount that the queen was known at that time as a sorceress who heavily influenced Solomon, serving as the moral instigator behind his later madness in renouncing Judaism, building pagan temples, and ultimately being punished by God. Perhaps this is why Kabbalah identifies the Queen of Sheba with Lilith. The most enigmatic account involves Lilith taking part in the famous siege and destruction of Jericho. The paradox of this story is that Lilith assisted Joshua, even alongside her husband, the formidable fallen angel Samael. Samael was one of the 3 archangels, along with Lucifer and Azazel, who opposed God and started the Great Rebellion of the Angels. If you wonder how it could be possible for two of the most powerful figures in the demonic world to help one of God's chosen destroy a debauched city, you are correct to question it. This mystery remains unanswered. Samael is another well-known figure in the Bible. He is often mistaken for Lucifer, but this is not accurate. He is a different archangel who later became a fallen angel and played an equally significant role in the rebellion of the angels against God. Regarding his relationship with Lilith, Kabbalistic mystical texts mention three possible scenarios. The first scenario suggests that Samael fell in love with Lilith because of her rebellion against Adam and God, which provided a compelling reason for him to fall for her. Shortly after she left the Garden of Eden, Samael approached, seduced, and married her. The second scenario tells us that Samael himself created Lilith to be his wife and the mother of his children. He immediately made her his queen and provided her with several thousand demons to serve her. The third scenario posits that Samael and Lilith were created simultaneously by God as the opposite pair to Adam and Eve. The aim was, naturally, balance. Lilith's frequent presence in Jewish traditions and mystical texts might have prompted Ben Sira to create a complete, albeit satirical, story about her origins. In truth, Lilith's roots stem from the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, where she is known as the sacred water spirit Kisikil-Lil-Larku, which nested in the tree of the goddess Inanna. One could compare her to a dryad, a tree spirit that protects and embodies the essence of trees. The Jewish depiction of Lilith resembles the Sumerian goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar, the beautiful winged goddess of beauty and love. This connection suggests that the Jewish myth of Lilith could be a blend of the goddess with the dryad or tree spirit. The Epic of Gilgamesh is widely regarded by scholars as the grandfather of the Jewish Bible. Therefore, the appearance of a character from the epic in Jewish mystical texts is not surprising. It is well known that the gods of an older religion often become the demons of a newer one. Just as it happened with many other later religions, Judaism could not entirely erase Inanna Kisikil-Lil-Larku from the traditions of its people. Instead, they absorbed her into their own mythology and tradition, demonizing her and distorting her name to sound evil, as Lilith in Hebrew means night creature monster. Given Inanna's status as the goddess of beauty and love, it's easy to understand why she was so beloved by the pre-Jewish Sumerians and early Jews. Similarly, it's easy to comprehend why strict, dry Judaism sought to demonize her. An independent, dynamic woman with strong sensuality had no place in a ruthlessly patriarchal Judaism. As the saying goes, time has a way of turning things around. After centuries of unjust demonization, Lilith began to reclaim her original essence during the Renaissance and beyond. She emerged as a symbol of femininity and an authentic feminist icon who rejected even the Garden of Eden in pursuit of her freedom and independence. Today, in some neo-pagan movements such as Wicca, she is recognized as the goddess protector of feminine sexuality and wisdom. It took nearly 4,000 years of unjust condemnation in demonic obscurity for Lilith to return with renewed strength, once again receiving the attention and admiration she deserves.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to stay updated on new content. Don't forget to visit my e-shop for printables for your Book of Shadows or grimoire.